So the volume of stem cells is the primary focus. You need to overwhelm the malady with stem cells. So let's go back for a second and talk about this from a rate equation perspective or a manufacturing operation.
Yeah,
I would
sure.
assume that there's the South Korean IP, but now the question is how do you scale that in a way that also makes it more cost effective, right? Because
Right.
looking around and whatnot, stem cell therapy traditionally is anything but an inexpensive option.
Well, so the South Korean technology, we took that. The original inventor of that South Korean technology is my partner in this endeavor. So we got
Oh,
together, and our common sort of the common goal that we've had is really the focus that we want this technology to help the masses.
yes.
In order to get there, it has to be affordable. So,
Mhm.
how is it going to be affordable? Well, insurance has to cover it. And the only way insurance is going to cover it is if you have an FDA approved product. So, that's why we have to go through all of these steps.
Right.
Now, if we're doing stem cells like individually like this, traditionally it is very expensive. You're
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
But if you're efficient, this is why over the course of the time since we left Korea, so we did a lot of work together in Japan, treated a lot of patients. So we had a good background in cell therapy since then. But
Hmm.
we took all of the sort of baseline technology that we had and we made a lot of improvements, enough improvements to get new patents. So our patents were just issued December of last year, so they're pretty new.
Uh-huh.
And we have a brand new technology that is much more efficient than it was before
Okay.
and can deliver kind of the cell volume or the doses that we need in a short period of time. That means that it's a reduction in the cost.
Right.
Now, what makes it even cheaper is that you uh, use sort of traditional methods of cell culture. We're talking about methods of cell culture, 2D cell culture, really no different than you growing mold in your kitchen. I mean, it
Right.
is like on a plate. The
Standard
technician's going
petri
to go in
dish.
there, seed it,
Yep.
petri dish. That's
Yep.
exactly right, and grow it. That's what we do.
Right.
And as primitive as that sounds, you do that in a high quality environment. You can produce very large quantities of stem cells at a very low cost. The more sophisticated technologies you use, like bioreactors and things like this, the reason why we actually don't do that is because we find that there's a loss in the integrity of the actual stem cell.
Mm. Okay.
Your stem cells grow very well in just traditional 2D culture. I really
Right.
don't
Don't
know what
understand
else to
why,
say,
but
but we've tried
right.
a lot of different things and we find that this is what works the best and this is why we're sticking to it. And cost is the driving factor. At the end of the day, if the patients are forced to pay for all the R&D costs that go into manufacturing a drug, then it is our responsibility as a company to make sure that we are as diligent and respectful of every single research dollar that goes into this. That's why
Sure.
we're going to stick to our original plan and go with it.
That's fantastic. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit. We talked a little bit about cerebral palsy, but I know that you're doing work in other, and we're going to lead to the COVID stuff, which is very recent and exciting. But you're also
Sure.
working in Alzheimer's. My mother has RA. I'm
Oh,
really excited to
wow.
hear about what you guys.
Sure.
She's been taking methotrexate for years,
Forever.
and the side effects, they're not fun. But Alzheimer's, TBI. uh, Are there proof points in that maybe from a more of an idealistic or from a passion standpoint that you've seen results in patients that tell you that this is worth the financial risk of and the personal shall we say, well, let's just straight, you are running a medical company that is searching for their first FDA. That is a very bold move to be taken. I can only imagine that you've seen results in patients in trial basis that tend to make you believe at night you're definitely onto something that is disruptive.
Well, the benefit of this, and I wish I could be as brave as you make me sound, but I got the benefit of witnessing it myself in Asia, right?
Hmm.
After thousands of cases, tens of thousands of cases, you have a really good idea of how this stuff works. But it's not a standardized double-blind placebo-controlled trial like we're used to seeing in medicine. And so people can't take you seriously. Now, you have to legitimize it. Now you have to do the hard work. And that is the hard work. It's respected because it is hard work.
Right.
It takes years, scientific rigor. You have to be absolutely passionate, and you got to be persistent and go with it till the end. Well, I thought, you know what? God willing, I have, few decades ahead. I can afford this time.
Sure.
And I'm in really no rush right now to figure out something, but I will see to it that it gets done. And so I decided that, I would make this work in the United States and get through all the necessary trials and generate all the necessary data to make this happen, because I've seen it. I've seen it work. I just need to explain how it works, which stem cell scientists are all different in our opinions on how this stuff works. And we will argue it to the end, because I don't think there's really any way to prove out how it works. But at least if I can prove in clinic through well-designed trials that it works, then it can meet the scientific requirements necessary to get an approved product.
Is it fair to say that this is better understood or much more mature in practice in Japan, South Korea than it is in the United States now?
I'd say it is. That's a really great question, because just because they've done it longer doesn't mean that they're more experienced.
Right.
I beg to differ on that one, because in our time in Asia, yes, we were great at treating a lot of people and getting anecdotal feedback, right? Because you meet all these patients and they're telling you how wonderful they are. You get this stuff. But what you're sort of not perfecting as you're doing this, and this is why we're still so far behind when it comes to the world of cell therapy, is that we're not putting the same sort of stringent requirements on the product.
Yeah.
So when I always talk about standardization and product quality, it's just patient to patient, the cell quality was just not
the same.
Always there. And why does it need to be if no one's regulating it? Right. So that's sort of
there's a place for the
it's
FDA.
like a classic,
right.
I mean, it's just like any industry. If there was no regulatory body hovering over you and making sure you're doing everything by the book with every safety standard known to man, like how do you really know? That's what makes America so special. Right. Why are American goods considered to be the gold standard?
Right.
Because it is. Nobody else is going to care like the Americans do, right? We make sure that everything, and still we're not perfect. Still we have issues with, but still there's a regulatory body that cares, that is overseeing that things are manufactured exactly the same way. That when you go to get your stem cell infusion and you're paying for 200 million stem cells, that you're going to actually get 200 million stem cells in that syringe. Who's going to make sure that happens? And so that's where cell therapy is sort of, we've always been limited when it comes to even the best practices in other countries that I've seen. It's just, and in that sense, they're far behind.
Got it.
Okay, in that sense, they're far behind, because to get a product to a point where it would meet an FDA standard, if we have to get to that point specifically for each patient, and I'm talking really right now about autologous treatments. Autologous means making a customized treatment for each person, using their own stem cells. That is an incredibly difficult thing to do, because your stem cells and my stem cells are going to grow at different rates, have different personalities. We're going to have different, how are you going to do that for every single, if you and I had to go in for an infusion next Tuesday, how are you and I going to know that we're going to be able to get cells exactly the same dose on the same day? That right now is just an impossibility in the stem cell world. I think you can appreciate that as a manufacturer.
Absolutely.
It's a very hard, imagine you're dealing with organic compounds that have their own, and they're temperamental too.
Yeah.
Just because they act a certain way on Wednesday doesn't mean they're going to be the same on a Friday. I mean, they're,
It sounds as though there's a whole nother level of IP that is going to be required to be designed that's purely process
Oh yeah.
that needs to be developed so that you can scale this to the masses.
Yeah. It's a process. It's an art.
Yeah.
The only way you can scale it is to make sure you can still limit the cost.
Yep.
Where if you limit the cost, all you're doing really is increasing the workforce, and you just we've designed the facility in a way that it can be scalable. You just basically scale the amount of manufacturing suites you have,
Mm-hmm.
and you just that it's really consumables and people is really all you need. But it is certainly scalable.